Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome FC Dallas Curious fans to episode number 55 of Third Degree the podcast. Today perhaps we could say North Texas Soccer Club Curious fans as well, because joining me on the call is none other than North Texas Soccer Club General Manager Matt Denny. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Buzz. Thanks for having me.
All right, the first most important question of the day is, as myself being a fan of Newcastle United, how did you become a fan of fellow black and white striped club Notts County?
I'm going to say the original Magpies here, so it's a nickname we share, but we can claim we're the originals. Really, I mean, it was Forest had traditionally been the more favoured fans in Nottingham. It's still true to this day, but I guess I just went against the grain a little bit. I remember watching, an FA Cup final in the early 90s against Tottenham. It was Forest-Tottenham, and my whole family's rooting for Forest. I decided to cheer for Tottenham more to annoy them than anything else. But I went to a football camp at Meadow Lane, and one of the coaches took me under his wing, and the rest is history. I just started my passion for the sport, and it's been that way ever since. My university friends called me footballitis, and they said I got the bug, and it's just been that way ever since.
Now I'm going to ask this question without knowing the answer. Were you a professional player on some level, or is your background amateur like myself?
Yeah, so I was always aspiring. That was what I wanted to be, was a professional. But I had some tryouts for some top teams back in the day, and I think when I was 15, I had a tryout for Leeds United when they were in the Premier League, and I really saw that as my last chance to make it. And when you get to that 15, 16-year-old age group, you really kind of your opportunities are very slim to make it as a pro. I did end up playing for a team in the Unibond Prem, which is a semi-professional team, and then just worked my way playing men's football from the ages of 15 onwards. So I had some opportunities, some tryouts, but it was mostly semi-professional and amateur level.
So how did you come to the United States from amateur soccer player at the age of 15, 16 years old?
Yeah, really, I guess one of the things that piqued my curiosity about America was that the World Cup here was a phenomenal thing to watch. I took some trips over here with my family, and my high school coach in England was a former coach at a university in Green Bay, and he told me, he said, look, you're too old to make it here now, but you should look at America as an opportunity if you want to keep playing. There's a good life out there. And he arranged a tryout for me at a couple of universities, and he said, in order to pay for your trip out to America, you should coach, and they'll pay for your trip and pay you along the way for a couple of months, and then on the tail end you can do your tryouts. And I kind of took his advice, and just before I was supposed to come out, I got injured, but I still came out and did the coaching side of it. Just never tried out, and ended up coming back to England, doing my university. And in the 3 months, every summer I got off, I would come back out and coach, and just enjoyed it. I got to coach based out of Rhode Island 1 year, Southern California 1 year, and Chicago 1 year, and got to see a lot of the United States, and always did the coaching for 2 or 3 months, and then got some vacation at the end, and just got to see a lot of the country and fall in love with America, really. And I think I've got to see probably more of a country than most Americans have, and I just have enjoyed that opportunity and being part of it.
So from university student to FC Dallas, what was that path like?
Well, basically, when I was finished university, there was a club in Chicago that offered me a full-time position. They took over my visa and said they wanted me full-time, and it was a club called Lions Township. So took that opportunity. It was a great club, great philosophy, and worked there for 5 years. Worked my way up to director level, and met my wife in Chicago. She was from Texas originally. She grew up in Richardson, and we would come over every Thanksgiving and Christmas, and come from the brutal cold of Chicago to the summer sun and winter sun in Texas, and it was very appealing. When we started to look at housing, we looked at the price of real estate in Chicago and then the real estate in Texas in like 2009. That was appealing too. So we made the jump over here and made the decision to move over here. I took a job coaching originally, but it's a little bit of the Wild West out here, and enjoyed the business side. I wanted to get more involved in the business side because I got that experience at the club in Chicago, and took an entry-level sales job and kind of worked my way up. I was very competitive, so when I was given a goal, I would go and get it, and started hitting numbers, getting recognized on a league level, and really enjoyed the fact that I could be competitive, go after numbers and try and win, I guess is the thing. But I got to get a lot of exposure with different departments within the organization, whether it be sponsorship, merchandise on the team side. So I really kind of took pride on not just staying in my lane and learning from other departments and interacting with other departments too. So I really kind of enjoyed learning about the whole organization and not just one facet of it.
So before the start of the 2019 North Texas season, really before the club even existed, I suppose, that you were named GM of North Texas Soccer Club. Did they give you sort of any larger mandate with North Texas Soccer Club, like a mantra for the club or a philosophy of the club?
There was a lot of direction. I remember when this opportunity first came up, ownership asked me, and they explained what was happening, that they were starting a USL team, and they thought that I was a good candidate to interview. So they asked me to interview. It was like a midweek, a Wednesday, and by early the next week, I was in front of ownership and some members of Hunt Sports Group, kind of presenting what my ideas were for the team and what I can bring to the table. But overall, I mean, it's a team that was set up to give opportunity to develop our players and bring in new players that can develop. But they just wanted a professional environment and be able to give players experience and put them in MLS-like situations. And that can be from travel to fans to, training especially, but, things like player appearances and going on the road and playing for our hostile fans, but just putting people in front in situations that are going to help them make the next step and also see if they're ready for the next step. So we wanted to do that, develop players, but also try and create a winning culture and experience for these players of being professionals.
Now, I assume that it was a group decision, but what impressed you about Eric Quill as he was a candidate for the head coaching job?
In hindsight, he was a perfect fit. There were some good candidates, and I think Eric's his aspirations and his drive is infectious. His mindset of wanting to win and develop at the same time is something that just fit with the organization. And the fact that he was, part of the FC Dallas family in the past, playing, for the Burn, and it was a great fit. But he's a good person, a great coach, and he fits what we're trying to go after. And part of the team and the organization is to grow players and grow people and give people opportunity. So he really fits within our model of growing and developing people as well as players, and that's top to bottom within the organization. So it's great to see that, and Michel's another example of that. Former player, have the opportunity to get some coaching experience, and he's stepped up in a big way too. So Eric was a phenomenal hire, and big reason of why we won a championship last year.
Now, one of the first decisions you guys made in terms of player personnel was to bring in Ricardo Pepi, a decision I actually think was fantastically smart, both in terms of his ability and his potential, but also in terms of the fact that he had already been getting notoriety, off the field and was a known commodity. Can you take us through the decision from your end in terms of bringing in Ricardo Pepi as the first player to the club?
To be honest with you, by the time I stepped in and came into the process, that decision was already made, and it was a great decision. My understanding is that it was just the obvious decision, and it's something that he had earned, and you ask anyone, who'd come across him, it was a no-brainer. So he's kind of taking every opportunity and forcing people's hand, and just, I think he's a phenomenal talent that we're lucky to have.
I think on the podcast, if I remember correctly, I predicted, I'm not even going to say if I remember correctly, I remember for sure that I predicted that North Texas would not only win the league the first season, but dominate it. How, from the inside, how did you guys feel going into that first season? Did you have that confidence level, or was it more of a blank slate for you guys?
To be honest with you, it's difficult to know in the first year of a league. You don't know what the other teams are going to look like. You don't know what we're going to look like in actual game situations. And we wanted to be competitive. We wanted to get in the playoffs. And I think that was kind of the initial goal. If you ask Eric, he would have said championship without hesitation.
Of course he did.
but that's him, and that's why he's good. And after every training session, he asks the players, "What's the goal?" And the response back is championship. And that's been the case from day one. So I think for us, we wanted to be competitive, get to be in the playoffs, and go from there. That was our initial goal.
How about in the stands? Did you guys have any expectations going into the year? Were you able to meet whatever goals you had set that first year?
I think there's a lot of things in year one. We're a big learning curve, and this was one of them. We thought we had a good plan going into it. We'd got tickets out to a lot of people, and our drop count wasn't as good as what was actually out there. So that was a big learning curve for us. Initially we were going to play a game or two in another stadium. I think it was actually 4 or 5 games we had slated for a secondary venue, and we had to make a U-turn on that because something changed that was kind of out of our control. So that was something that we had to kind of pivot on really quickly. But it was tough being in the same market as our MLS team, to be honest with you, and it's something that won't be an issue in future years so much.
What kind of you mentioned this other venue? Just generally speaking, what kind of other venue were you looking for, other than Toyota Stadium?
I mean, for us, we've researched a lot of potential opportunities. It was seeing what fit with the league structure. There's league minimums and just what ticked the criteria for the league, and then we would explore and see what opportunity there was for us to play. So it was really just seeing what fit within the league's mandate and go from there, and seeing what was out there really, and then go from there. So we've had a lot of conversations with a few facilities, and it's just finding ones that are willing to work with us and fit the criteria.
Now, I know you're involved with kits and at North Texas, and we, of course, on Third Degree are huge into kits and take them quite seriously. And so what hints can you give us about this year's kit? I believe there's a new home kit that's new, and did you get me blue socks to go with that red jersey and white shorts?
I can't give too much away. I think you guys are too good at guessing for me to give you any intel on this. So you're a victim of your own success there, but I think you'll like it this year. Socks-wise, I will tell you they're not blue, but we were able to get some more customization on the socks, and they came in a couple of weeks, look great. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I'm not going to give you any hints, unfortunately.
No? All right. I assume that predominantly red is still the theme, if we can go at least that far.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait and see. I know you'll like it. We would have had it released a couple of weeks ago. We're actually waiting on patches. They've been delayed. We've got new patches with the star above the crest, and they've been delayed with all the stuff in China delaying production there. So our company's sourcing them in the US, and hopefully we'll get some in pretty soon.
Let's move on to 2019. I don't think any of us, even the biggest Ricardo Pepi supporters and fans in the world, would have predicted a opening day hat trick. That certainly was a glorious way to kick off the whole campaign at home, I would think, for you guys.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. Maybe Pepe if you'd asked him. But,
of course, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that was him taking his opportunities. He's writing his own story, but just that was a great start, and it kind of put us on the map. It showed that age isn't necessarily a factor, and if you're old enough, you're good enough, as it goes.
Now, North Texas came smashing out of the gate. April was 3-0, May was 3-1, before you finally lost your first game of the year and the eighth game of the year up in Toronto FC, which is obviously one of the better teams in the league, particularly on their home ground. Do you recall how the team reacted to that loss? I believe it was in the middle of a road trip, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Going back to that, I meant if you're good enough, you're old enough. I think I said it the wrong way around on my last one there, but yeah, back to this question. I do remember that game because there was a lot of interesting moments in the game, and I think there was some things after the game that led to an interesting referee report for me. But it was a bit of a reality check for the team. I think that Toronto got in our heads a little bit, and it was a credit to Eric, just how he deals with players and their mentality and the psychological side of it. I think that he wanted to get that game out of their head as soon as possible and move on to the next one. So I think we went from Toronto to another game on the road. It was 2 road games, and I think we had some, interestingly enough, we had some baggage issues where our bags ended up in LaGuardia, and we got them the day of the game. We got our uniforms, so that was an interesting one to maneuver.
You are correct that the team rebounded really well right after that. They won a few more games before they lost their next one, which was the game Coach Michel had to start. So the big takeaway, the big question from that, of course, is that was there if I remember right, the DA was in the playoffs, and there was a bunch of calls from the first team. But my question would be, was there an adjustment from you guys in terms of the way you manage your roster for this season from that circumstance?
Yeah. The simple answer is we've learned from it. We're going to do things a little differently this year, but it was an anomaly too. It was kind of the perfect storm of injuries and international call-ups and other games within the organization. Across every team, it's something that we thought we could manage. It just all happened at once, and obviously we didn't want that to happen, but we learned from it. And going forward, we've got more players on the roster. We're scheduling, we've tried to avoid certain dates or make sure we've got home games on certain dates as well. So I think we've got it under control, and that was a big learning curve last year.
It's interesting to hear that you guys have a level of input into the schedule with the league. That's a little surprise to me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're able to have some input, obviously, on stadium availability dates, but we can lean on the league a little bit on games that we would like to have home games. Certain games we would prefer to be at home based on what's going on in the market. So they work with us within reason, but they're obviously managing a lot of teams, so there's no perfect way of doing it. But they do try and work with us and give us a few opportunities to go back and forth with other teams. So they're pretty good in that way. As I say, we can't say every day we want, but we can have some input, and they're good like that. So that is helpful.
Right now in June, Ricardo Pepi signed with FC Dallas as a homegrown, which was probably a foreseeable circumstance. What was not foreseeable was the explosion of Ronaldo Damus, who became your go-to goal-scoring threat. I mean, was that something that that the staff and even yourself, I'm sure you have discussions with the staff, saw coming? Because I certainly was caught off guard by his ability to convert at a high level in that league.
Yeah, he stepped up in a big way. When you kind of have to deal with the idea that you don't have your top goal scorer suddenly, and what the plan is. He just stepped up in a huge way, and if you look back at the season, him stepping up and scoring those goals was instrumental, and it was probably as big of a factor as a lot of things you could isolate of what was a key thing in the season that helped you. Just him coming and stepping up at the right time and being able to score those goals was huge. But it's credit to him, took advantage of his opportunity, and I know that Eric was maybe someone that saw it coming and anticipated a little bit and put him in scenarios that made him work harder in practice and force his hand. So he took advantage of his opportunities, but it was something nobody saw, to be honest with you. And I think he just took it in his stride and took every game as it comes, and always had a smile on his face.
Now, you only had one home loss on the whole year to the Greenville Triumph, and to be honest, that was quite a shock when it happened. Why do you think you guys were so difficult to beat at home? And what about, and Greenville was a tough opponent you had the whole game. Was there anything about Greenville
Hmm.
specifically that made them difficult for you guys last year?
I think they've obviously got a great coach, and they just went out tactically and prepared well. I think that was the game where we got an early red card. That
Right.
didn't help, right? Yeah, so that kind of took the wind out of our sails. But I think Eric's comment after the game was we really didn't prepare for situations being a man down, and that was something he took out of it and prepared obviously for in the future. So it's a brand new team and a new group. It was just one of those days where we kind of didn't have answers, and they came out and prepared tactically really well against us. And I think we started to see that a lot of teams kind of went out with the tactics of, doing the low block and trying to just plan against us a little bit and not allowing us to play the way we wanted to. So we started to see that, and we started to see the players getting frustrated, and then we had to adjust and adapt. And this kind of why we're doing it, is the players are learning how to adjust and technically and tactically adjust the teams that are playing and trying to stop you playing, I guess, is the way it worked for us.
Now, at that point, you had earned home field advantage to the playoffs. How are you guys feeling as an organization, having accomplished what you have admitted was going into the season the primary goal, I think, for the organization of making the playoffs and getting that home field advantage? Was it everything you thought you were meant to achieve, or was the expectation for more at that point?
The home field advantage was huge for us, and going into the playoffs, I think we have to remember that a lot of these players are young, they're young professionals, and as much as they may have had competitive situations at a youth level, it's a different level, and having them just be able to have their home comforts and routine, I think really helped them focus on the game and diminish the nerves that they would have had surrounding playoffs and going into it. But yeah, home field advantage was huge for us, and I think helped us. Um, and really, I think when you look at this team, is we want them to be in situations like playoffs and put them in those scenarios. So I think every player that played or even was part of the squad, learned and became a better player because of the playoffs.
All right, be honest now. Where does standing on the field and lifting that championship trophy rank in moments of your life?
I got to be careful on that one. So
You do have a wife
it's
at
up
home.
there. It's up
Yeah.
there. No, it was good. I was. I think more than anything, I was just happy for the guys and proud for them, and it was it was great. I mean, it's something that they'll always have with them, and I think that no matter where they go and where their career goes, they'll always have that moment, and they can say they were champions, and it was great for them to see that.
All right, let's talk a little bit big picture then, if you don't mind. How important is it? Is profit versus loss? Loss. How important is the bottom line for North Texas Soccer Club?
Um, I mean, it's one of those things. This wasn't set up to be a big money maker. We've got a budget and we've got goals and expectations, and we're trying to just, for us, it's if we can stay within those parameters, it's good. And the focus is developing players. But it's the budget and the numbers we have are important, and we've got to stay around that. And we want this team to be able in the future to be something that stands on its own. So we've got long-term plans, and we're taking it with realistic goals and realistic expectations, and I think it's good for the long term.
So, looking back at last season, did you ballpark meet that window that you were looking for, financially speaking?
Yeah, I think that we had certain things that we came short on, and certain things we overachieved on, but overall I think it was within expectations of ownership, and it was a successful year. So yeah, we look back on it as a success. But going back to it, we excuse me, we didn't have unrealistic expectations, and we knew there was going to be a lot of things we just didn't know. So it was a learning curve, and we came out of it comfortable with how we finished.
Now, you and I have talked before about the idea of selling players to other teams, whether it be domestically or internationally. as part of the business plan for North Texas Soccer Club. Are you at all close to that sort of deal happening with any of your, without details, you probably don't want to give away the farm, of course, but is that something that's approaching, that idea of selling your first player?
I think it's more of a side effect. It's not something that's kind of we're basing our success or failure on. But I think that's the football business. That's the soccer business. So with the amount of talent we have, we'll see that happening just naturally. Our footprint's going to grow year over year when we see more players go to different teams, and it's only going to help us. But we want to see players develop, and we really do. Whether a player stays with us, gets sold, or just goes to another team, we want to see him succeed. And we're pretty adamant is when you're part of the FC Dallas family, it's something that means something. Even when you're not with the family anymore, there's always that relationship and support that we're going to offer players.
So is there an aspect of loans potentially, like, for example, Breck Evans or Arturo Rodriguez, are those kinds of loans part of that process by chance? Not specifically in their cases, but just as a concept, and the involvement of USLC and clubs that you have relationships with?
Yeah. I mean, for them, it was just a good opportunity, and we want to go see how they do. We're going to follow their progress, and we're excited to see how they do. But it's we're constantly following them. We're communicating with them. We're up to date with them. So it's something that players have to learn to go to other places and succeed with other environments as well. So the short answer is yes.
Now, obviously, we're all stuck at home, for most of us, I imagine, with the this big shutdown of soccer and even beyond soccer, shutdown of life in general. Yeah. How big is the impact of a shutdown? Your season hadn't started yet, but is North Texas feeling the impact of this shutdown beyond just the mechanics of I'm at home? Is it a worry yet? Is it an impact yet?
I've been on conference calls. It seems more than I am awake right now, but we're at a point where all the teams in the league are very focused. They want to get games in, they're ready to go. They want to get as many games into the season as they can. So right now we're planning on making up all the games and still getting a full season in. But obviously we're monitoring things closely. We've got a great ownership group, so we're very supported, and we know we're going to do everything we can to play and get a full season in. So it is a stressful time. There's a lot changing, and we're seeing teams in other markets that may not have been impacted as much as the Dallas market just yet. So we're monitoring it. We're looking at different scenarios based on how long this goes and what we can do, whether it's extending the season, changing the playoff format, things like that. So there's lots of potential plans, and I actually was added to a USL task force of 5 people for League One. So we're meeting with, medical people, USSF, and just giving feedback, and we're able to expedite league processes a bit quicker based on when we get news and updates. So it's a good opportunity to get involved and find out information and be part of that process. So it's good.
You mentioned your ownership. Is there a point at which of shutdown that you start to have legitimate troubles and problems? I mean, could you survive, for example, a canceled season as an organization?
It's a good question. I think that it's something that we would figure as a league. I think that now we have this team, we would always want it, but it's more of that's a question if and when it comes. We haven't had that conversation yet. Everything that I know is we want this team, and it's something that I don't think the organization could live without now. It's too good of a development opportunity, and we're in it for the long term. So, I think that it's one of those questions. It wouldn't be us making that decision. I think it would be looking at other teams in the league would probably be changing the landscape before we do.
So are you worried about some other teams in the league surviving? I mean,
right now, no. Every team that we've been in contact with, and we're in constant communication with all the teams. They've got great ownership groups, and there's no concern right now, and nobody's worried about not having a team next year. So I'm pretty comfortable with where the league's at and where all the teams are at. So we're positive, and the fact that our season hadn't started gives us a bit of flexibility. When we're ready to go, we're going to go out the gates, and we can adjust the season and things that we need to. So we'll be good, I think.
Well, that's good to hear. I certainly agree that this having this development team is a massive, massive bonus for this club. Which brings me to the one of the other topics that's not so easy to discuss. Would you agree with me that at least for now, North Texas Soccer Club is having a little bit of a trouble to get academy kids to sign on a USL level? Do you feel like the pipeline is not quite flowing the way it should?
I think we've signed a lot of academy players, and we've given a lot of players opportunity. So I think overall, when you look at it, it's been successful. So I think we've given a lot of academy players opportunities and signed some players. So I think it's overall, when you look at it, it's successful, and it's case by case with everybody.
Is it important, perhaps organizationally, for somebody other than Ricardo Pepe to make that step to the first team to highlight that pathway?
I think that as much as we can, promote players from North Texas and they make that step to MLS, is great. That we're seeing it with whether that's an academy player or not. I think that the pipeline is important, that we see that progression.
Now, I know there's not a specifically, or I'm told there's not specifically a salary cap for USL 1. I'm assuming that there's some kind of internal club budget. Do you have a good flexibility to sign players from anything from a semi-pro up to, up to the equivalent of an MLS homegrown type level deal? Or is it where are your hands tied a little bit more than that?
We're operating within parameters and within budget constraints, but I will say that what we're offering our players is definitely fair, and I would almost say it's above, market value. And the pathway here is just something you don't get somewhere else, and to be part of this environment is huge. So, it's something that I think nobody else gets the opportunities and the infrastructure we have anywhere else in the country.
Now, obviously, the appeal of a college scholarship is out there, but I believe you guys have a program for education for your players as well. Could you tell us and the listeners a little bit more about the program that you have there for the academy guys that choose to come through the North Texas pathway?
Yeah, so for those players, we offer them, the opportunity to get their degree and their education. So it's something that we have, and it's something that we felt was important to offer them, and we do think education is important. So really, if this is the decision and the route they want to go, it's not something they have to sacrifice. We have players taking online courses, and it's a great program. So we're fortunate to have that.
Now, the big change for 2020, of course, is the move to Arlington, to Globe Life Park. How did the first contact about that situation come apart? Did the Rangers or Globe Life come to you, or did you guys reach out to the Globe Life people?
So I think this was a long process, and it happened. We had Sean Decker came out to Toyota Stadium, and we were actually showing him the Hall of Fame and looking at that. We obviously got a new stadium going in, and it just came about from conversation, and it was the right time at the right place. We when you initially see that stadium, you would think it wouldn't be a good fit, but they kind of told us the plans, and they were able to get us involved in the process. Even meeting with the architects, and they really said, look, what can we do to make this work and be a good fit for you guys? So they were phenomenal partners, and we got to. The more and more we heard about it, it was like this is a good fit, and being able to have that input was great.
Now, you and I talked a little bit in person about the surface at the stadium there. Why don't you repeat what you told me about y'all's input as an organization into the surface, in particular your coaching staff's input into the surface there?
I'll preface this with, we had a situation last year where we went and played on some really bad grass
I
over
remember.
at Lansing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at the ideal situation, it's we had ground zero at one point we were comparing it with, but the turf they brought in, obviously, it's no secret grass is preferred, but would you rather have phenomenal, turf or bad grass? And um, the turf they've brought in is just as close to grass as you can get, and I think that's what Eric said. We went and did a community practice out there. I think, yeah, you were out there,
Right.
and that was the first time we actually got to step foot on it, and from just walking on the turf, we were like, wow, this is phenomenal. It's, as I said, as close to grass as you can get. We were able to meet with the architects and get the dimensions of the field exactly the same as Toyota Stadium, which is great for us. And I think it's a surface that's going to allow us to play our style of football, and we're excited to play there. It's going to be good.
Now, you mentioned that Globe Life and the Rangers guys were accommodating, but how was it working with the XFL? Did you have the interaction with them in terms of putting together the stadium and what it was going to be like?
To be honest, that was everything we've done with XFL has been great, but the interactions with our seasons not crossing over so much is hasn't been huge. But what we have done has been great. All the communications with stadium is through the Rangers, so it's really been them that have been the key people we've been working with. And the collaboration's gone through them. So everything we've done with the Rangers, I think every time I walk away and we've had meetings and conversations, it's exceeding expectations. So it just seems like a good fit. We're excited about that community. Rangers are excited about bringing soccer to that community, and being able to have the input into it and getting in on the ground level was huge for us and made it possible. So
Is that opening up the western half of the Metroplex in Arlington and Fort Worth? Is that the biggest appeal for going to Globe Life?
yeah, I think that when we named it North Texas, a big reason for that was we wanted to play in a different area of the Metroplex, and we didn't know where yet. So we want to be in Tarrant County, and we've ran a lot of numbers, and we've cross-referenced our FC Dallas ticket buyers and season ticket holders, and we've seen there's a lot of people in Tarrant County that will come to one, maybe two FC Dallas games a year. We know there's demand and people want to come to games, but they won't come into multiple games. So we know there's fans out there. We know it's a great soccer community. There's over 400,000 people in Arlington alone. And I think it's close to 2 million, or maybe just over 2 million in Tarrant County. So for us, we wanted to create our own fan base. And, especially after last year, we can see that, being too close to FC Dallas when they're playing games may not be the best idea. So we're going to an area where we're seeing, a good soccer community, but we're really competing with the commute more than we are competing with the product or FC Dallas on the field. So we think we're going to have a lot of success. The feedback we've got so far has been, phenomenal from conversations with people to stakeholders in the community, and then as excited as the area is for the World Cup and bringing World Cup games over there, it's a good fit. And again, it's the right time at the right place, and just everything seems to be a good fit right now.
So in the interest of full disclosure, of course, I will admit that I live 5 blocks away from the stadium, so I'm super excited about y'all moving there. How have your players reacted to the idea of having their own venue and playing in Arlington?
The players have been phenomenal with it. We kind of went out and talked to the players, and we just explained the mindset behind it. And, they bought in, and I think the rationale and the reasons we're doing things speaks for itself. And they're pros, and, when you look at the facility, and we've done the walkthrough, I think they're really excited to be playing there. It's a phenomenal facility. So we're going to be able to do a lot more with the community and be part of the community. So it's good for us, and that's good for the players to get that experience as well, doing clinics and hospital visits, and just being more of an identity rather than the FC Dallas second team, being their own team in their own community. So we're excited for it, and the players are excited too.
Now, you have a 3-year lease. What are your expectations and goals over that 3 years at the Globe Life?
Yeah, so really we're just putting realistic expectations in to grow each year, and as I said, we want to be part of the community. We want to get good crowds out there. We've kind of isolated, one stand in the stadium, so that we can keep it compact and intimate and a good experience for fans coming in. So um, we just we're starting out with realistic expectations and growing each year as it comes. But again, we're excited. We want to be a big part of the community, and I think it's going to help us with our brand and just being a good identity there. The feedback we've got so far has been really good, as I said.
Okay, long term, let's say 5 years, 10 years. What's your dream stadium scenario? Or what might you think your stadium scenario might look like if it's not the dream scenario? What is the dream scenario?
Yeah, so long term, we're pretty vigilant about looking forward and looking at the next steps. We've been working on some ideas and projects. We've been talking with a lot of cities and CVBs, and we're constantly just evaluating our options. I think that in an ideal world, we would love to have a complex like MoneyGram Park or Toyota Soccer Center with multiple fields, 10, 12 fields, and a championship field. Um, that seats 4 or 5 thousand people, and that could be home for North Texas, because as an organization we have a history and we have the ability to to manage a complex like that. I think that would be our ideal situation. But we've also been exploring the modular stands and stadiums now with other places, and being able to pop those up. But I think a lot of it it's a long term process, and it takes a lot of town halls and city meetings to see. But we're by no means um, anywhere down the road in anything concrete. But we've got a lot of kind of hooks in the water.
Now, you mentioned MoneyGram. Is that a viable option, or does it need to be more Tarrant County?
Um, we want to be in Tarrant County. To be honest with you, it's something that we see as a great place for us to be.
All right, moving ahead to 2020. How's the team shaping up? You think you guys can repeat? What's your expectations for the year?
I think as a team, if you ask the team, the expectation is a championship now. You shouldn't settle for less, but there's a lot that goes into that. So um, for the team, we would want to see us as contending for a championship and winning another championship. I know the players want to, the staff want to. Um, it was interesting. We had the ring ceremony for the players that are still here to get those rings, and the new players kind of walked away from that, seeing the players get the rings, and they're like, I want one of those next year. So it was a good motivation for them, and we want to see players develop, and we want to give them opportunity to develop, but we also want to win, and we feel we can do both.
Now, you're not a coach, but you're a player. You're a fan. I see you out there watching training. Who's your prediction for breakout new star for this year? You're this year's Arturo Rodriguez, this year's Ronaldo Damos. Who's it going to be?
I'll tell you that really it could be anyone. I don't know if I can pinpoint one player. It's this early in the season, but it wouldn't surprise me if anybody stepped up and kind of broke out. You know, um, I think that we've got a really talented group. I think we've probably got a better team this year than we did last year. But
Wow.
also, I think that the whole league is going to be stronger this year. It's got that experience under their belt. A lot of them have a core group now. They're bringing back. Um, but if you remember last year, I think there was some players at the start of the season that were out the gate so strong, and then kind of faded off towards the second half of the season.
Most definitely.
Um, and it's that's part of the thing with these players. They're learning to be pros, and a big factor of that is consistency. And you got to buy into the philosophy of the team, and just keep it up and keep it consistent. So the simple answer is I think that anybody could be one of those players that breaks out, and just the environment we've created for them. If there's opportunities to go train with the first team, and they get pulled over and train with the first team, and they're sharing the same corridor with the first team, and just they can see the next step. Anybody could step up, and I think we've got a really, really talented group this year that, if they just put their head down and work hard, any or all of them could stand out and just leapfrog to the next level in their career.
Well, here's my answer to that question. It's Juan Manuel Alvarez, who is on loan from Monterrey.
Yeah, no, he's a phenomenal player, and I think you saw him with in a preseason game with the captain's armband on. So he's definitely identifying himself as a player that's leading by example, and he's definitely a talent to keep your eyes on.
I assume you have some kind of buy option in his loan. I would hope.
I'm gonna yeah.
Yeah, you almost passed, didn't you?
I'm gonna pass, but at the end of the day, I think that we're not gonna hide behind it. The reason for this team is we're signing players that we see project to the first team, and that's the goal. So we're gonna execute contracts based on that, and if the option wasn't there, it wouldn't make much sense for him to come. So we want players, and we're trying to identify young talent that have potential to make the first team, and that's really, if we can develop them, that's the whole philosophy around the team, and that's the exciting part of it is they have the talent, and we've got to develop them, and the opportunity is there. So it's I think if we see this exercise through and this project 5, 6, 7 years, and you track the players that we've had and where they go, it's going to be really interesting to see just the footprint that North Texas Soccer Club has created.
All right, Matt, thanks for your time. You've gone way beyond the normal Call of Duty. I appreciate it. Any last message for the fans out there?
No, just that we appreciate your support, and if you're in the Tarrant County area and come out to games. If you're not, come check it out. We're pretty fortunate to have that facility, but follow us and keep supporting us, and we appreciate everything you guys do. So again, we're excited about growing the footprint of soccer in the DFW Metroplex, and we appreciate everything you guys do over there, Buzz. So all your coverage and things like that helps us a lot.
Well, thank you. All right, everybody, that's been today's podcast with Matt Denny, General Manager of North Texas Soccer Club. We will have a podcast next week. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, but there will be something. If you enjoyed this or any of our other coverage, feel free to support us at patreon.com/third degree as we try and ramp this thing up to a next level during the middle of all the shutdown. Matt, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate you.
Yeah, stay safe, everybody.
That's true. Everybody out there, stay safe, stay home alone, protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community, and join us next week on Third Degree, the podcast.